You're watching Thoughts on Tech powered by Eastern Communications. Now in this podcast series, we are discussing cybersecurity. Especially now, with the booming digital economy, a lot of businesses are actually forced to put their business online. Question is, how do they protect their businesses from any form of cyber threats?
AI is a tool. So whether it's a friend or a foe depends on who uses it. So I suggest for everyone who's afraid of AI, use AI.
We are not saying that you will not be attacked. You will be. But the magic word there is that you should be resilient. If one of your services go down, you should be quick enough to get it back to service.
The truth is, no matter how small your business is, you need security. Whether physical security or cyber security. Security is still very important.
There will be threat actors always, but we need to adapt this because at the end of the day, we just want to use technology to better our lives.
I'm Jess De Los Santos and you're watching Thoughts on Tech powered by Eastern Communications. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jess De Los Santos, and thank you for joining us here on Thoughts on Tech, powered by Eastern Communications. Now, for this particular 4-part episode podcast series, we are going to be zeroing in on cybersecurity. What with the booming digital landscape, it is but imperative that we actually cyberproof our presence online. A lot of experts are saying one tool that we can tap into is artificial intelligence. But on the other hand, there are also other corners which think that AI in and of itself poses threats and risks. Question now is, when it comes to cybersecurity, is AI really friend or foe? Now, to answer that, we have with us on today's episode, the Philippines' country representative to the Global AI Council, Catz Jalandoni. Catz, good morning. So glad you could join us.
Thank you for having me here. It's a very interesting topic that you have for me on this particular episode on Thoughts on Tech.
All right. Now, for one thing, you wear many hats. It's only one of the things that you do. Representing the country over at the Global AI Council. But how exactly did this come about?
The interesting thing about Global AI Council is that it was founded by a female Filipina who actually grew up in the Philippines but had made herself an entrepreneur in the US. With the advent of AI, so many people were feeling afraid of losing jobs. When in fact, this particular lady, the founder's name is Kate Hancock, was able to leverage from having $20 before to about millions of dollars with use of technology, and now also with use of AI. So that's what the advocacy is about. The technology is a tool. Use it so that it will benefit you, and embrace it so that you are going to be able to do more things than you thought possible and capable. So when she founded Global AI Council, she mentioned to me the advocacy, which is to democratize access to AI education so that everyone can find a way to leverage on this tool so that they can build their own businesses, their own empires, or so that can make their work-life balance easier as well. Regardless of what it's used for, the technology is there. So that's what Global AI Council is really advocating for, the access to free education, high-level AI education.
Okay, we're going to pick up on that later. We're going to dive deeper into that. But I want to pick up on what you said, how Global AI Council was actually founded by a woman, and now you're the country representative. Is that something that was a conscious effort for you when you actually said yes to the role? Because when you try to take a look at reports, it shows, at least according to the World Economic Forum back in 2020, that only about a quarter of AI professionals are female.
One of the things that made me say yes was because through my experience with new technologies coming up, there was blockchain, there's Web3, now there's AI. Finally, I found a technology that I can truly talk about, just because it doesn't require me to go through a full-length course to understand or to use it or to program it. AI is programmable by anyone. You just need to understand prompts. And that makes it so inclusive. That makes it something I can truly champion because it's something I can personally do. And another aspect of the reason why I accepted it is my fear for not being able to understand how to support my children in this new advent of this particular technology. And the interesting thing about AI is something that came out of me. And that's why I said, yes, maybe I can do this, which was, this is a technology that actually can use mothering. it learns.
Mothering in the Gen Z slang or mothering in your terms?
My term,
Ah.
right? My term, which is and everyone says that, you know, when you mother, you say not only how it's supposed to be done, but whether it's right or wrong.
Right.
And so that's something that I found very me, in that I'm championing for people to actually mother your AI, right? Whatever use you have for it, teach it. Tell it it's doing something wrong. You can teach it not only how to find information that is relevant to you, but how to access information that can actually be functional for you, and what type of information it should be accessing. So this is a tool, a technology that is actually very much applicable for use for multiple industries, and very inclusive in that anyone can actually use it. It's an intrinsic technology. People don't need to understand how it's done.
All right.
They just need to understand how they could potentially use it.
Now, I mean, I'm with you on that end. Like, for example, I mean, at the onset, when I first heard artificial intelligence, it seemed overwhelming. And even if, especially if you're not a technical person, I think we're both on that same level here. Earlier, you mentioned about generation. I mean, for one, yes, we're already addressing issues here on gender gaps when it comes to AI use. But it can also be a generational thing. I mean, like, for example, perception and use of AI would actually be more favorable for the younger ones, like the millennials and the Gen Zs. But you have studies also pointing out, while there's increasing use for the boomers and the Gen X even, it's still not as wide as the younger ones. So is this also a gap that you wanted to address when you're talking about democratizing the use of AI?
Yes. I normally would spend more time on the easy people to speak with, which are those that are already adopters or want to adapt, because it's hard to evangelize. But you would be surprised about how many older generation are harnessing and using and learning these tools, and are actually using it and enjoying to use it, primarily because they've reached a point in their lives that they have the time to really understand. They want to do more. They're interested. They're curious. And when they have access to tools that suddenly make everything easier, the magic is real. Right. So that's what's interesting about this particular technology. The magic is real for us who have never experienced it before. But ask my 5 or 6 year old who is so used already to, you know, the technology, the tablet, right? That you can just ask it. It's not magic anymore. It's life to them. So that's interesting.
Okay, good thing that you mentioned that. Like, for example, even the older generations, there's already a sense of magic whenever they tap into AI. And sometimes unknowingly, they are actually tapping into AI. But what's the AI experience like here in the Philippines? For the common folk, how exactly do we tap into AI? What's the presence of AI in our daily lives?
When you're in a place where it's not very easy to explain new technologies, the way to go about it is to make it intuitive. And I think that's how majority of the AI applications and services are done here in the Philippines. And I love that it is intuitive because it makes it inclusive for anyone to use, even those that are from the provinces where there might not be as easily accessible internet connection or accessible programs for them. They might not know how to use AI itself yet for their own businesses, but AI probably is already a solution that is making their lives better without them knowing it.
But are there like other more common ways by which we experience AI? Like, for example, the moment that you enter social media, you put there your account, is there already AI happening?
Yes. That's why data privacy, the things that you need to check, has to be part of the onboarding process. A lot of people are going to fear it. Data sharing, right? That's why we have a lot of discussion on open finance, open AI. I'm not that afraid of my data privacy because I believe that the regulations built into these applications would have sufficient security protocols for me to use them in such a way that is just casual right. For me. Anything that would have more access to your information should not be of a casual use, by the way. I advocate very much for self-initiated consciousness on where you share your data, and that you really practice the protocol of not sharing your passwords. You should also be self-aware about how you're sharing your own information.
So let's pick up on that. Like, how much should you share online? Like, for example, I've handled talks like on this before, and some of the experts would say, try not using the, I don't know, the finger heart sign, or maybe even the peace sign when you're trying to take a photo, because for one, you're putting your thumbprint online on the platforms. And at the same time, some would say that, you know what, avoid using those apps which actually try to change your photo, because in essence, you're actually putting your face in some data or some, I don't know, big data out there. It's quite understandable where the fear is coming from, but how exactly are we going to be more conscious of what data we're putting out there?
If you've already used these apps before, you've put up your face on your photos, how can you stop that? It's already out there. Yes, you will insist on your privacy, right to privacy, but you will hear this all the time. I see this in my feed all the time, that someone has stolen my identity, gotten my photo, used some sort of mix of my name, and then created. You've been,
I've had my photos used for cryptocurrency.
Correct. Not only that, a lot of celebrities now have their videos AI manipulated to sell things.
Right.
And it's frustrating, isn't it? Yeah, you don't know how to stop it also.
So there's no workaround.
There is a workaround. Ask people to be more ethical. Have faith that the people who will use it right will, hopefully trump those that will use it for ill. Educate yourself so that you're aware about whether something is real or is not. And I guess at this point, community support is also very big. Like if you see a celebrity, probably doubt that he's or she's the one championing that particular product, raise it up, because that's how a lot of these social platforms know if there's fraud happening.
Right.
It is when people start complaining about it, report it, file it. And in your reports and in your filing, that's how they will probably form a better protocol for security measures. So right now, with technology being as new as it is very important that the users themselves be very vocal about their experiences, because that's the only way that it's going to get better.
Catz, have perceptions changed? I mean, there are figures showing that, for Filipinos at least, around 73% of the general population view AI favorably. But then on the other hand, you have around 63% that still have negative thoughts about the tool in and of itself. So that only leaves you around a net positive of 10+%, more or less. So is that already a small win?
It is a win. You can't discount the 1% is still a win. Okay. I think the numbers also reflect the knowledge that is still lacking and understanding. I'm not saying that these people who have such perception have not done their research. I'm saying that the information available to understand this technology might be insufficient or hard for them to find, right? What's important, in my opinion, is the openness right now. There was a time where there were staunch advocates against without really understanding. So part of the advocacy on Global AI Council, as I keep saying, if you're really afraid of it, if you believe that it is something to be afraid of, learn so much about it that you can debate why it's bad. Then be ready, because you might just realize that it's not that bad and that you can actually provide something that will make that technology even better.
Right. But Catz, initially, when we first heard of AI as early as the early 2000s, the initial fear was that, is it going to replace me? Is it going to replace my job, what I do? Am I going to lose my job? Is that fear still warranted, or is that ongoing debate on whether or not it's going to result in human labor being obsolete still warranted?
Everyone's fear about AI taking over their jobs, and this is everyone's common answer. It's not AI taking your job, it's the people using AI that will take over your jobs. What I really want to say is that the jobs will evolve. And that is why it's important for us to educate ourselves and understand, because jobs will evolve based on the need of the people and the use of the people for these technologies. I'd like to say a story of a perception of mine on why I feel you shouldn't be afraid of AI taking your job. I grew up and I've worked in an industry wherein one of the main talent pools used to be given to Filipinos is transcriptions.
Right.
There was years wherein that was bread and butter for a big part of our GDP.
It's a side hustle for a lot of us.
Yes,
Yeah.
transcription. So here's my question. During that time that AI wasn't available, if that was my job, if I can transcribe maybe 10 sheets every hour, that's not easy. You have to kind of understand the handwriting and all of that. If I can transcribe 10 sheets every hour and I do that for 4 hours, if I do that next year, do you think I can still transcribe 40 documents? I mean, if by 1 year later and I'm still doing the same thing, my eyesight will most
Right.
probably be worse. My body would most probably be deteriorating. Is that really a job giving me life, or is it taking my life away from me? If those are the types of jobs that AI will be taking over, I say go for it. I would rather stop doing that and find something else to do than continue to do that for year on year and year, and I will deteriorate. I'm not learning anything new. But there are some people who, because they're so afraid to lose that paycheck, will continue with that job year on year on year.
So the challenge now is upskilling. So that at the end of the day, you'd be the person who's actually using AI to do your job.
Correct. So those are the things that I'd like to challenge people. Find ways to leverage on it, not necessarily losing your job to it, but using it so that you can be more efficient, more optimized. That is the business process that you can do internally. And that's what actually the companies are doing. So if they can do it, why don't you do it as well?
Okay, Catz, that also begs a question. Are there really more industries or particular sectors that are more adaptable to AI compared to others? Or for lack of a better term, are there specific sectors as well which are in a way allergic?
So yes, you will see that there are specific industries that are fearful of what AI can bring because they have valid reasons to be fearful about it. The gung-ho ones definitely are technology, right? Technology, of course, it's also scary because part of technology is cybersecurity, right? So AI poses quite a bit of a threat in the eyes of everyone because you hear all of this news, it's being used for terrible things. Globally.
Deepfake, you have scams, and then you have privacy concerns as well.
Correct. If not only that, even AI plus robotics. The way to combat that as well is through leveraging on the technology for cybersecurity, for security in general. So you hear also deepfakes is an issue when it comes to probably the creative industry, right? And it is true. They have very valid reasons to be wary of AI. I don't want to use the term scared because it might not be fear. It might actually be frustration at times. So how do you now welcome a technology that poses a difficulty or unfairness in your particular industry? So yes, the creative industry does have challenges when it comes to welcoming this particular technology. And it's also very hard because how do you define now creativity? So a lot of people think, AI creates things and that poses a threat to authenticity as well as to their own personal brands, right? That's a debate. That's a debate that could potentially take more than an hour to discuss. However, I do want to say something about this. At this stage of where AI is, so you hear generative AI. At this stage of where it's at, it cannot create. That's why I champion also AI acceptance in the creative industry, because human creativity is exactly what AI doesn't have at this stage. It can collect information. It can trace and track trends. That's what it does. It can analyze it. It can identify very, very quickly what the links are, how it's drawn, how the feel is supposed to be. However, it still needs that human creativity to turn it into something new.
Okay. I'm going to challenge you on that one. I mean, on the creative aspect, I mean, I remember a few months ago, this became an issue online. You have a certain brand making use of AI content, AI figures, at least for humans, as endorsers or at least as people that they get to see on their marketing materials and their collaterals. And that became an issue online, especially for artists out there. So how do you work around that?
It's not a workaround. It is where I would champion integrating ethics in AI use. And this shouldn't be something that is very specific in AI. I think we have to really integrate ethics in our education, in our use. Because the use of this particular technology, just as with every new technology, can be abused, right? And it is so difficult to champion something when it is used for unethical abuse of a person's privacy. And that's where we see it being used for commerce, right? It's literally about, trying to sell something.
Right.
And it stamples upon human rights. And that's where really I feel we need to have more respect for each other. It's not just AI. Any technology can be used for fraud.
But how can we keep up? Because AI in itself is fast changing. So we have to stay one step ahead of the curve here. And having said that as well, what do you see lies ahead here for AI? How do we actually grab the opportunity to keep up and at the same time to stay ahead of the game?
What's nice about having new technology is that there's a lot of free education online. And it's even certified. Just take the courses. Some are paid for and a lot of them are really worth it. And there's a lot of apps also that offer free use before you can, or free trial before you have to register later on. Make the most of that. So how do we keep up? Really understand where the opportunities lie is in your own industry. That's the nice thing about this new technology. In my own industry, I should know what I need to do. And if I understand the programs and platforms out there that use AI to make my particular job easier, that transforms already my work and probably the future of my industry later on. So we keep up by using the technology. If you're afraid of it, don't be afraid and not learn, right? That's a fear factor. You're afraid of it, you don't do anything, you're paralyzed. Step away from being paralyzed, learn more about it, and kind of try to integrate it in small little ways in what you do every day.
But isn't that also going to be a point of concern that Filipinos mostly now are users? We're not yet at the level we're in. We are initiators.
I love that you asked that question because right now, we're not sure if we're going to end up as users. One of the things that we're doing in Global AI Council and in a lot of organizations that's championing AI is to really strengthen the knowledge base of the Philippines and the Filipinos, not just because there's a lack of skilled AI developers in the Philippines. There's also a lack of understanding on how to implement it. So it's not just about the ones developing the programs or using AI. It is also about companies not understanding. They just want to implement AI. They're not sure how. So the upskilling is actually industry-wide. It's company-wide. And so that's the opportunity that we have. We don't know if we're going to end up as users. If by next year or if in the recent future, we upskill our knowledge about the technology fast enough, the Philippines can be the base for talent pool.
And now to wrap things up, we're going to go back to what you mentioned earlier about your role over at the Global AI Council, that is to democratize the use of AI, especially for the common Filipinos. How exactly do we go about that? And having asked you that, what's your vision here for AI?
Global AI Council provides complimentary and free masterclasses twice a month. Anyone can join globally. So it's not just for the Philippines. You can go to www.globalcouncil.ai. Just register there and you'll get the invite to join
It's easy to join.
It's free.
Wow.
Easy to join. They do have a membership program for corporates, but for individuals, that's what we're trying to do. We're even open to, for example, you would like a masterclass to be done locally with this AI architects globally, we can do an offline masterclass for you. That's something that we're working possibly with DTI and DICT
Like you can
as
go
well.
to their offices and do the training there, or
Because if there's budget, one of the biggest problems really is budget for resource speakers, right? Especially for the provinces, you have to fly them.
all right.
But if we do an online masterclass with them, because we do have them or experts in our pool of advisors globally, and now we can do an online class.
Right.
You can have a Q&A all the way from a different province on high level AI education.
How's the take up though? I mean, I guess that would be a good question because in a way that would reflect as well the level of interest.
The take up it hasn't started yet, and I'll
Okay.
tell you why. It's not because we're not ready for the experts. It is because we're working with our government, with DTI and DICT, to understand what level should we start, right? How do we localize the available information out there so that we're actually effective in helping these SMEs to really understand the possibilities of AI? We don't want to overwhelm.
Right.
So there's research happening right now that we're waiting for. Once that comes to us, we're going to be able to curate that particular set of masterclasses that will be befitting for a localized audience.
Okay, so lastly now, what's the goal here? What's the vision 10 years down the line?
10 years down the line, I feel we should look at maybe 2 to 3 years down the line because the technology is so fast. But the vision really there is that for us, to have industries that really function well, seamlessly with using of all of these technologies so that our lives are more efficient, actually. It's really about efficiency also.
Okay, so back to our original question, is it friend or foe? It's more of a friend. It really depends on how you're going to make the certain changes, the necessary adoptions.
It is a tool.
It is a
AI is a tool. So whether it's a friend or a foe depends on who uses it. So I suggest for everyone who's afraid of AI, use AI, because the more people who are afraid of it that use it probably means more people will use it for good.
All right. Thank you very much again. Very insightful talk with you, Catz Jalandoni again, country representative of the Philippines over at the Global AI Council. Thank you, Catz.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here, and good day to you all.